Hi fourth graders, this is our last math video of learning. So we are going to wrap up what we know about decimals today. And so our target is that you are going to work on recognizing the place value of decimals to shade and add equations. So by the time you finish your packets for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you are going to have learned all of the fourth grade expectations for you to be able to do any pages in your math workbook. So your math workbook was sent home about a month ago. So any pages that are in here that you haven't done yet, you now have all the skills to do anything in here. So hopefully you have that available. In the summer when you're bored and want to do some math, pick a couple pages and work at them. And that will help you remember the skills that you're going to need when you get to fifth grade. So when I talk about our idea, whoops, that's upside down, of being able to recognize place value of decimals, this one is, we would say decimal 5600. So when we talk about place value, there's not any ones. There are 5/10 because that is the 10th spot. So that represents like our strip, or what we said are dimes last week. Okay, how many tens? There's 10 tenths in 100 or in 1. And then the 6 represents our hundredths place. So 6/100. So 56/100. 5/10 or 5 dimes and 6 pennies. If I look at that on the board, up here I have 1 and 47/100, which would mean one whole or 1 or like a dollar. And if we were saying this is 47/100, that represents the tenths place. There are 4 tenths and 7/100. 4 tenths would look like this, 4 tenths. And then 7/100 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1 and 47/100. We could also say that could be 47, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It could also look like that, where I would just add my hundredths to this. So 1 whole and 47/100. So that's the thing to remember about our decimals. And also how that might look as a fraction would be 1 and 47/100. Another thing in your packets that it's going to ask you to do is to maybe compare some numbers. So if I think about this has the same number of 7, but here the 7 is in the tenths place. Here my 7 is in the hundredths place. So how's that going to look? Well, 7/10 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 out of the 10. Here this is 7 out of the 100. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if I'm comparing those, 7 dimes is always going to be more than 7 pennies. So 7/10 or 70 out of the 100 is always greater than just 7 out of the 100. So some shading, some comparing. One other thing in your packet that you're going to do, and I know we did a little bit of this in the school year as well, is adding fractions. So if I have 64/100, like 64 pennies, and I want to add 2 tenths, well, tenths are like dimes, so that's 2 dimes, which is really 20/100, because when I add fractions, I have to have the same denominator. So I can't add tenths and hundredths. I have to change my tenths to hundredths. So 64 pennies plus 20 pennies would be 84 pennies out of 100. So there it is as a fraction. And if I want to write that as the decimal, 8 dimes and 4 pennies, or 84 hundredths. So remember, when you're adding fractions, you can't add hundredths and tenths, pennies and dimes together. You have to make everything into pennies. Let's take a look at one more. Here I'm adding 7 hundredths, which is like 7 pennies, and 4 tenths, which is like 4 dimes. Those 4 dimes can be the same as 40 pennies, and change that to hundredths, which then means I'm adding 7 pennies plus 40 pennies, which is 47 hundredths as a fraction, and as a decimal, 47. Okay, so you're working your packets. The last 3 days will be to, again, you can get some color pencils out, do some shading. You're going to work on this page where you are doing the place value of ones, tenths, and hundredths. You've got a number line to put your hundredths and tenths on. Thursday work, again, continuing with decimals, writing in and recording where the arrows are pointing, doing some adding of tenths and hundredths, identifying the correct number that's written as a decimal here, as a decimal and fraction. And then the last day, Friday, June 12th, we'll be doing some shading as well as, again, recording places on the number line. So 4th graders, it's been great to be with you and give you a lot of the 4th grade learning in math. So finish those up, and then remember, you have your math workbook and a lot of the decimals and fractions. If you find in your book, Unit 7 is where we've got a lot of decimals and fractions, also a lot of review of the multiplication of 2 by 2 digit or 2 by 1 digit strategies, some division. You can go back to the front where things probably look pretty easy now. They weren't in the fall and the winter, but you've grown a lot in your math skills, so have fun with that. And again, it's been great to be your math teacher for the last several lessons, and I hope you learned a lot. And if you get stuck, go back and watch some of the videos over again. And you guys all have a great summer, and anxious to see you all in the fall back here at our school. Okay? Bye. Have a good time.